Here's 15 things you need to know before you move to Vancouver, Washington. In today's video, we're gonna go over everything from safety to education to where to go hang out when it's sunny outside. We're gonna go head over to downtown Vancouver. There's gonna be a lot in this video, so if you're thinking of moving up to Vancouver, Washington, this is gonna be a great overview of all the changes that have been made. Right behind me is a development that used to be a cow pasture, and so Vancouver has rapidly expanded, and there are tons of people flooding into this area. Hey, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going over 15 things you should know before moving to Vancouver, Washington. At times we're going to be bouncing back and forth between the screen and my face. Stay tuned to the end because 15 is really telling on why people are flocking up to Clark County. And if you are excited about moving to Vancouver, Washington, today's video is just for you. I am licensed in Oregon and Washington as your realtor. Subscribe down below if you are looking into making that move. I am your guide. If you're traveling up here, landing at PDX and wanting to check out some neighborhoods, just give me a ring or a text down below right here. So let's get going for the first of 15 things you should know before you move to Vancouver, Washington. So the first thing you should know is the downtown Waterfront is newly renovated. Not only is it a great summertime place to go grab a beer, play in the splash pad, go on a walk with the family, but even during the winter time, the lights come out. And even though the sun's setting a lot earlier, there's tons of people walking around, going to all the different restaurants and coffee shops that this waterfront creates. And just behind me are a ton of new condos, so you can live that downtown riverfront lifestyle and have it right here in the Pacific Northwest. So the second thing you should know about Vancouver, Washington is that if you don't like something about Vancouver itself, because we're gonna go over a lot of things and some of it will be negative, then Vancouver's got a ton of tiny pockets that will fit your niche. You've got Camas and Washougal that are off to the east and a lot smaller. You've got places like Ridgefield and Battleground up north that are a lot closer to farmland and are a lot quieter. Yakult is way up in the woods or over in Ariel. If you really want something that's out in the woods, Sasquatch, I mean, go look up D.B. Cooper. You can get lost out there is what I'm trying to say. Vancouver has got tons of little pockets if you are looking for something that is uniquely you. So number 3, we have education, and there is a reason that Washington State is the 13th best in the nation when it comes to education. In Vancouver, you've got 4 high schools that rank with an A or higher, and that's Columbia River, Mountain View, Union High School, and Camas. And all of those areas actually directly correlate to some really great neighborhoods to live in as well. And all their feeder elementary and middle schools are also highly rated. We'll do a short list of Prairie High School and Washougal also ranking a B, and Hawkinson, which is over here up in the northeast corner of Clark County. Hawkinson's also fairly highly coveted with a B rated high school, and I've heard really great things from people that have graduated there. So I would say that if you're looking for an A or a B high school, those are all the ones I would consider from a public high school perspective. Now, that's not to leave private schools off of the list, and Satan High School, which is a Catholic school, is right off of 99th. I actually lived right in that area as it was under construction. I taught there, English is a second language, and I can see why that got an A grade. Now, the joke is that parents that send their kids to Catholic school are sending them there to pretend like they're not getting into trouble, but I honestly didn't really experience that when I was teaching there. Great kids, great teachers, and I think a really great community that surrounds that. There's also Kingsway Christian, which is off 78th, about a mile away from Satan, just south, and that one's got a huge sports complex right next to it. So those are the public and private schools. There's also Washington State University. They got a satellite campus down there, beautiful sprawling green campus. And Clark County Community College is a popular place for people to get their associate's degree. Not a lot of colleges, but obviously you can travel south to Portland where there's PSU, Reed, Lewis and Clark, and tons of other colleges to choose from down there. So with Vancouver being a little bit quieter, it's got retirees, it's got a slower pace of life than a place like Portland just to its south. And a fourth thing to know about Vancouver is that it's slightly more conservative. just looking at this map right here, you'll see that it goes a little bit more purple. You'll see a lot more like Second Amendment libertarians, a really eclectic bunch of people that are maybe left in some things and right in others. I've got a client that's lived in Portland for almost his whole life, and I think he's a great summary of what Vancouver might bring, is that he decided to move up here and he just said, I'm tired of extreme left politics. I've always been liberal, but I like to get out into the woods. I don't really care what other people think. I just want to live my life. And for him, Portland politics had just gotten too heated, too far out from what he grew up with. He's an older generation boomer. And even when we were looking at homes, we talked to one neighbor that was a hippie from Alaska, and then another neighbor was, a retiree with a Trump thing in his front yard. And then, you just get so many, such a variety of people, and almost everybody in Vancouver will say yeah, I love my neighbors and they are very different from me. So you actually have quite a mix of people in Vancouver. You don't get an echo chamber like you would see in a deeply right-wing or a deeply left-wing city. So with us being so close to Portland, it is literally just across the river here. You do need to know that, and this is the fifth thing, is that we do have some Portland problems. I mean, when Portland does its clean up the streets, some homeless will come up here. You will see tents along 205. You'll see homeless in downtown. There's obviously pockets that we're going to be talking about which are safer, quieter, don't have quite the same big city problems as Portland does. But you do need to know that you're moving next to a city that has been in the headlines a lot, that is riddled with big city problems as it has growing pains. And so while Vancouver is definitely pulled away from, and it's just got those two bridges connecting it, you got I-5 right here, and you've got the 205 a few miles further down, it still does bring in some of the problems from Portland. So if you're trying to get away from Portland completely, like you hate it, you want to get as far away from it as you can, Vancouver might not be the best place for you. So the sixth thing you should know about Vancouver is the job market. 24% of employees work in the tech industry in Vancouver, 18% work in the health industry, and 15% in manufacturing. 45% of people that live in Vancouver work down in Portland. So I would stick around for the 15th thing you should know, because it's really going to unlock a housing hack and really a tax hack that people aren't talking about enough. Now, speaking of the job market, there was 1,500 businesses open between 2015 and 2020. Really, the commute over either the 205 or I-5 bridge can get very heavy between 7 to 9 a.m. on going north to south, and then going south to north, that commute can get pretty heavy after 3 o'clock and go well past 6 p.m. Some people will notice that if they're coming from a more rural community, but others who are coming from a place like Los Angeles will think it is just a minor traffic jam. Now, getting into the seventh thing you should know is that Vancouver is very family friendly. I had my first couple kids while we were living in Vancouver, and I will tell you, there is so much to do, so many parks up there. Salmon Creek Walking Trail was one of our favorites. The Vancouver Public Library in downtown Vancouver is huge, with an entire floor dedicated to kids, with one of the most amazing play places I have ever seen. So if you got kiddos and you need an indoor activity because it's always raining, Vancouver's public library is a great option. But there's also a ton of gyms like the YMCA that has free childcare with a monthly plan. We definitely took advantage of that, so my wife and I could go work out or swim. And there's a lot of indoor play places. Vancouver definitely has a noticeable amount of families in the neighborhoods, and because a lot of Vancouver homes are newer built, code meant that sidewalks had to be put in, which means there's a lot of walkable areas for you to push a stroller, or for you to, hold your toddler's hand and make sure they're not walking onto the street. With Portland being an older city, there's just not as many sidewalks or infrastructure built and geared towards having a super family-friendly neighborhood and layout. Now, the eighth thing here is that depending on which numbers you look at, Vancouver does have some cheaper pockets than Portland still. Now, I think that's disappearing very slowly because of some of the things you should know later on in the video. But if you look at the map here on my screen, you will see that pockets of Vancouver, Folite is at 550, which is a super desirable area, but we're going to look at Hazeldale 480, corners at 5 corners and orchards, which is at 475. Central Vancouver is at 405 average home price, which is one of the cheapest average home prices in all of Greater Portland. You can even see that Southeast Portland at 445 doesn't get near that. Now, of course, there's still pockets where you're going to be paying a lot more. Brush Prairie Hawkinson coming in at 570 with Battleground right behind it. And of course, Camish Washougal at 804,000 average home price. That is getting actually past Lake Oswego and West Lynn. It's not past Lake Oswego because West Lynn is clumped in with these statistics here. It actually surpasses it. So it's the most expensive place to live if you're looking at this map here. If you want a breakdown of which neighborhood is best to live on this map, then you're definitely going to want to subscribe, because I go over, walk all these different suburbs and neighborhoods. And so you're really going to want to stay tuned if you were thinking of moving to our area, because we go all over both states to give you a breakdown of this area. Now, the ninth thing that you should know is that there are plenty of great restaurants, coffee shops, and places to go and go to a concert. Portland has brought a lot of things to the food scene. I mean, Portland has done wonders to the food scene, and Vancouver has shadowed it. You even have unique restaurants to Vancouver that Portland doesn't have, like Wildfin. But you can also have places like just around the corner, Salt and Straw, which started in Portland, and Vancouver shadowing it. So you get your own little unique taste in Vancouver, and you got a lot of stuff starting up, tons of different restaurants opening up, got the international airport just at your fingertips across the bridge. And by the way, PDX is so close to Vancouver, it's actually closer to a lot of places in Vancouver than a big chunk of Portland. Because, I mean, I could actually point it out to you. PDX is basically right there. Now, the 10th thing to know about Vancouver, Washington is there are tons of outdoor activities. I mean, obviously you've got this waterfront we've been talking about, but you've also got tons of hiking trails. You got Lacamas Lake over in Camas, which is an entire lake. You can go kayaking, paddleboarding. All of the great summer activities are like 15 minutes that way at your fingertips. Salmon Creek walking trail, which we've touched on numerous times, because Salmon Creek's a beautiful walking trail. You've got a lot of parks. Vancouver really invests in its outdoor park activities. And if you want to go like up to St. Helens, that's a whole, and the Pinchot Gifford National Forest is an entire playground of outdoors, Goat Mountains, tons of places out in the Cascade Mountain Range where you can see nature, and some of the best nature out there. Lava caves up in leading up to St. Helens is a really fun lava cave system that you can go and explore. You got to obviously bring a headlight. It's really it's a pitch black cave is what it is. Vancouver is an outdoor playground, and it's a great base camp for people to go out and winter activities, snowboarding, windsurfing in Hood River, going and fishing along the Willamette, the Columbia, over in the ocean. There's just so much to do here. Now, number 11 is that Vancouver is home to lots of good boys. I'm going to show you a clip from a very friendly dog that I met at a home showing with 3 parks that you can take your good boy to. Good boy. Oh. The 12th thing you should know is safety. Vancouver ranks fairly high for safety. It's 56% safer than Tacoma, 41% safer than Spokane. It's 35% safer than Seattle, 29% safer than Portland. Now, it's not quite as safe as rural areas and cities like Boise, but it does have a 35% lower than national average crime rate, and 90% of the residents have reported feeling safe. I can personally attest to having lived up there. I left my doors unlocked living up in the Hazeldale neighborhood, and this is helped by the fact that Vancouver's got a fairly strong police force with 200 plus officers. And another thing you should kind of know or be aware of is, on the negative side of safety, you'll hear that Minnehaha and Fourth Plain are two streets and neighborhoods that run kind of near 500 that most often correlate with a bad place in Vancouver or slightly less safe. So if your top concerns are safety in Vancouver, there's definitely great pockets. In fact, according to SafeWise's top 10 safest cities in Washington for 2024, Camas, Washington tops the list. So that'll just show you that depending on where you live in Clark County, you could either have a slightly sketchier experience or you could be in one of the safest communities in the United States. Number 14, getting near the end here, people are actually moving here. Yeah, that's right. Number 14 is kind of a culmination of a lot of the positives that you might have heard throughout this video. There are some things that might detract some of you from not wanting to move up here, but there is a reason that so many people in our area are moving and choosing Clark County over all the other surrounding areas. I mean, just look at this graph. Clark County is far surpassing everybody else at population growth. They're doing a great job at using things like this amazing waterfront to bring in new activity and opportunities. And guys, really, I can see why. I mean, look, I live down in Clackamas County because of friends, family, my community, but I can see why people are choosing Vancouver. And so this last reason, which is number 15, is really going to show you why it heavily tilts in Vancouver's favor. And this is the 15th thing you should know when you are looking to make a move to Vancouver. It's really good information. There's lots of numbers that we're about to go over here. So let me set this camera down so I can give you all of the numbers here. I've got my little cheat sheet here because there are tons of numbers to go over. We're going to throw some of them on the screen here. But Washington and Oregon, really any state, can be divided up into 3 different types of taxes. All right, so there's property taxes, which is what you pay on owning a home. You pay those taxes annually or through escrow every month if you have a loan. You then pay income taxes in certain states, which get tacked on top of federal. And then there's also sales and excise taxes. Like every time you buy an item at the store, you can be charged a tax at the end. Now, Washington has got a 2.58% property tax average across the board. It's got a 0% income tax and a 5.46 excise and sales tax, which is the highest out of any of the 50 states. Just to give you guys some high and low, in combination, Washington has about an 8% tax burden on the average citizen. And now Oregon has got a 2.95% property tax compared to Washington's 2.58. It's got a 4.3 income tax for its state, which is different from Washington. Washington obviously has no state income tax. And then it's got a sales and excise tax of 1.19%, which is a lot lower than Washington's, and a lot of items don't even apply. So to break it down for you, Washington has got an average tax burden on the average citizen of just over 8%, 8.04%, and Oregon's is just a little bit higher at 8.44%. So really, when you take up all the taxes, people like to gripe about taxes. Oregon and Washington are right there in the middle, the highest being just over 12%, which is what New York charges, and the lowest being 4.93%, which is Alaska's. Just a few more states to name is California's got a 10.4, Utah's got a 9.3, Hawaii's got an 11.8, Idaho's got a 7.8, and Wyoming's got a 5.7, to give you some context. But this is really the big hack that I've made everybody wait to the end for, is imagine that you're living in Washington State and you're either working from home or you're working in Washington State and you do all your shopping in Oregon. Let's add some numbers up really quickly. You'll get the 2.58% Washington property tax. Now let's go down and remove income tax. You won't get that, but then you go over to Oregon to purchase things. That's 1.19%. If you take 2.58 and add that 1.19, you're sitting at like what, 3.8? A 3.8% tax will be your total burden compared to the lowest state in the US of Alaska being 4.93. So if you are a dual citizen of Washington and Oregon and you really don't want to pay taxes, this is the place to live because you get to take advantage of both sides of the river here. That is really, really cool. And most people, I mean, it's talked about, but it's not talked about in this context of how big of a savings it is. It is huge. Let's even say that you're shopping in Vancouver every once in a while for convenience and you end up paying a total 2% excise tax and sales. You're gonna pay 4.6%, which is still lower than the 4.93 of Alaska. And really, that big hefty excise tax comes when you sell your house. So if you retire and buy a house in Vancouver, just don't ever sell it. Keep it in your estate, pass it down to heirs. Don't get that excise tax when you sell, because that's the only time that's gonna hit you. Thanks for watching today's video. I'm really glad that you made it all the way to number 15. If you learned something or if you have any questions, just shoot it down in the comments below. Reach out to me right here. I can call or text if you're looking to make a move up here to Vancouver or anywhere in Oregon or Washington. I can help you out. Watch this video next, and I'll see you next week.